So after this workshop, you are going to be able to discern, be much more discerning about what is good, really high standard quality tapping, and what is And one of the ways that you will see that is by the testing that people do. Are they thoroughly testing the work or not? Are they only asking, how do you feel? Or give me a suds level, and then they stop with that. But there are other ways of testing your work that are much more thorough.
Paper.
So, before we go into different testing methods, let's talk about what are some of the signs that you know people are feeling better and releasing. What are some of the signs that you saw yesterday? Yawning is like the biggest. Anyone else notice something about either themselves when they're doing tapping or observing other people? What do you notice as a sign of something releasing?
I just can see them go like,
Yeah,
I can almost see a release. I can see their whole body language go.
Right, their
Before
whole
it was
body
like
language.
tense maybe, and then I can just see it just kind of, I can tell when it releases.
Right. So shoulders slacken, and you just see them go more relaxed.
You make better eye contact.
There's more eye contact. Yeah, I would say that I want to just put a little like an asterisk. It depends on the culture, right? So in Asian culture, looking straight in someone's eyes, that's yeah, right. So it just just be culturally sensitive to that. But yes, for most people, it's like they're darting and then suddenly they're focused. So have you experienced any kind of gaseous release, like burping when you're tapping?
People do that.
Yeah, people do that. I had an older gentleman who would pass gas and just be embarrassed by it, but that was the way that they, released. I had a client that would laugh hysterically, like we were so. We were just so focused on this intense situation, and then midway through, she just started, just like really over the top laughing.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting. Sometimes a tear is like a sign of release, not flooding, not going, but just a tear is a sign of like emotional release. So those are signs that there is release going on in the body. The yawning and the sighing, and that is, it could be pretty mild, it could be every round, and then there are people that feel really tired.
Yeah.
So there are some people that you may have to tailor your sessions not to be an hour long, not to be an hour and a half long. 2 hours is way out of the question, and you almost peel them off the chair and say, go home and take care of yourself and rest and sleep and get a good night's rest and water. So that I see especially with teenagers, and I think that's because they're holding so tight that they're just like, their whole system is like, wow, this is relaxation, huh? So that's those are some of the signs that you can see physiologically. There are also signs that someone has really let go of something cognitively by what they say, and that's called a cognitive shift. A cognitive shift. And a cognitive shift is when you hear these pearls out of your clients' mouths, such as, wow, I really get that my mom was in such a great deal of tremendous amount of stress, and she was really doing the best that she could at the time under some very difficult circumstances. You will hear that from your clients, but EFT works so fast, so quickly, that unless you ask, those things are really just floating around in the person's head in the background. So a good time to ask is at the end of a session. Here we are, we've been spending this whole session just tapping on the issues around your mom and how she's always getting in your business. Tell me how you're feeling about that now. And that's when you'll hear these things from them. So a cognitive shift comes from the client, not from you. And they make really good sneaking away statements. Right? We talked about sneaking away. So even though I'm not done with that yet, I realized Mom was really doing the best that she could at the time. So listen to that for that with your clients at the end and use that as a sneak away, and it's going to be much more powerful than you coming up with something. Cognitive belief shifts can also, sound like, wow, that's crazy that I was even thinking about that. Or it's crazy that I was so stressed out about that. That seems silly now. Those kinds of things. An important reason for doing all of this testing is something called the apex effect. APEX. The apex effect is really, it's a fancy word for cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. EFT works so quickly, so thoroughly, so magically, and is so out there to most people that they will attribute anything and everything to their healing except for EFT. So the more that you can show them, they'll say things like, that wasn't really bothering me that much. And you can refer back to when the start of the session, well, you just said you were ready to shoot your mom, right? And you were at a 10. So when you can do that and reflect back to them, they will get it. Because it's a strange phenomenon. I've seen it so many times where just in our small town, I'll run into someone and I'll say, we worked on that, smoking cessation. How you doing with that? And they will say something like, oh, it's gone. I haven't smoked. And I'll say, that's great that, EFT worked for you. And they will say something like, no, it's because I'm exercising more. It's because I'm drinking more water. And it's not that I want to stroke my ego. It's I want them to see how powerful this is so that they can use this tool for themselves for other things that they want to work with in their lives. But it's funny how often that happens. So that's another reason for testing, is so that they can see. So, testing methods. There's one that we've been using that we check on before we even do tapping, and then we do a round and we check on it again. What is that one? SUDS. And what does SUDS stand for?
Subjective units of distress.
Subjective units of distress. The 0 to 10 scale. Okay. There is one that I asked you to do yesterday, which you probably didn't realize, was when some of you got to a 0 on the fictitious event that we were working on, the movie scene. Those of you that got to 0, do you remember what I asked you to do? You said you were 0, and I did another testing method.
Imagine it again.
Yes, vividly imagine. Whoops. So close your eyes and vividly imagine. Now, you don't ask somebody to vividly imagine a trauma and you're still at an 8 with the SUDS. You need to be really low before you enter this other, deeper, more thorough testing methods. So they say, I'm a 0, I'm a 0, I'm a 0. Maybe some intuitive hit you're getting there. No, they're trying to please me. It's not really a 0. There might be something still left. Then you can say, okay, if you think you're a 0, let's really check that, vividly imagine it. So that's one. The best testing method is the actual situation. You're working on fear of flying, and you book a plane to Europe. And you're fine. Someone just went, ooh.
Because I would say book a trip to Florida.
Oh,
like
to
not
try.
so Florida. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it's
So-
like a
but
shorter flight.
yes. So at that point, when you book a trip to Europe, you've already gone through all of the other testing methods, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it just.
Vividly imagine, and no, it's done, it's better, it's gone, maybe a small trip, something like that. So, actual situation is always going to give you the best feedback as to what you have left to work on. So that's why I really don't recommend that you work with someone once, that you consider working with them over a series, because you want them to get feedback for how they're doing in their real life, and then come back to you with what might be left. So they hate going to work, they have a bad situation, everyone's just bullying them. You want them to go back and get immediate feedback on what's happening at work, come back to you and see what's left. What's resolved, what pieces are left, and so actual situation is going to give you that.
Alina,
Yes.
now I know you talked yesterday about the fear of flying, and you and Craig went with the man to the airport or whatever.
Yes.
Would you recommend that if somebody thinks they vividly imagined it, they have no problem, they're thinking about buying a plane, would you recommend they go by themselves to check that out?
They could, and they could turn around and, you know, walk right back out and say, oh, I need more tapping with my coach. Yes. So, and we took that gentleman to the airfield because it was as close to an actual situation as we could. We went and had a friend meet us there with a plane. So there's also so this will be what do I want to call this? So provocative questions or statements. So if someone says, they come at the beginning of a session and they said, I always felt like a loser in high school. You've done all of this work through the session. You're checking on the suds for each event. They're feeling great. No, I really don't feel like I don't feel like that anymore. You can say, to me, you look like a real loser, or something like that, and see if it is still triggering them. But again, I know that for those of you that are licensed mental health people, this is like, whoa, the more provocative these things are, the more you need to have rapport. You need to know your client. Some of this stuff is going to be offensive to some clients. Some of them, they'll laugh. You need to know your clients well enough to know which of these is going to be really a good testing method for them and which is not. But when you have really done your work and they are a 0 and there's good rapport established with your client, they're just going to say, oh, that's ridiculous. And then you know you're really done, and they know they're really done. Another one is props. So, props. If I bring a video and show it on somebody that's had experiencing a bug phobia, and I show them that is a prop that I'm using. A rubber snake would be a prop. At a workshop we worked with someone that had been paddled. 0. I feel great. She was just jumping up and down laughing and saying, it's gone, it's gone. So Craig and I, during lunch, we crafted a paddle. She had really described in great detail this paddle. And so we got cardboard and duct tape and we recreated a paddle and brought it out. Said, here you go. And she thought it was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. So, yeah, gone. Okay, so these are some of the testing methods that you can use. Another one that I would say is say this. So they're working with a belief, or they're working with, excuse me, a tabletop, and they, my mother is out to destroy my life. That's the tabletop. You've worked on many legs. You can have her say, can you just repeat to me what we started with? Please tell me, my mother is out to destroy my life. Say that. How true does it feel now? You could be working with the tabletop, the belief of, I'm not good enough. And you've made some progress on that. You've done all this tapping on the events. You go back and you check. Say this, I'm not good enough. How do you feel about it now? Okay, so another one is reenactment. So reenactment can be, or like role playing. Someone will say, again, this is the thorough next layers of testing. Someone saying, no, it's really gone. My dad yelled at me. He said, go to your room, in this really harsh voice. And you've worked on it, 0, 0, 0. Maybe you've done a little bit of extra testing with vividly imagine, close your eyes, it's really gone. Then you want to, that, she described very, very in great detail the way Dad looked and the way Dad sounded. So it's a 0, they're saying it's a 0. Next layer of testing might be you reenact that, or you role play. Just look at them with those beady, I'm looking at you with those beady eyes, go to your room. Okay? You want to do this when you are a master of the art of EFT, because it will because when you get to a 0, like I said yesterday, it's truly gone. You let people walk out the door and you haven't thoroughly tested the work, they bump up against something, it's not really gone, and they will say, EFT didn't work for me. So this is going to feel maybe at the beginning like a little premature because you're still trying to get to the suds. You're still trying to get to that 0 with the suds only. And then maybe do vividly imagine. But as you gain confidence in your skills, then I want you to start playing around with this. So during level 2, second day, we will be checking that you're doing some of this. And certainly in the level 3 course, we're making sure you're always doing this.